we are going to apply a decal to a model using microset and microsol. This is a water transfer that comes with these standard sheets. If you can see it directly, you can see these are all like little glossy transfers on the sheet. We're going to need an X-Acto knife, a transfer sheet, 2 brushes, and your model and your microset and microsol. I dedicate 1 brush for each solution just because I don't want them mixing together and you'd get a situation where the decal might stick to the model if there is excess microsol on it and you'll get everything screwed up. So first we will uncap these. I like to keep the lids separate. These bottles very often tip over. You'll see I have barely any micro set left, and that's because it tipped over. And I have a ton of microsol left because I learned my lesson. So the first thing we're going to do is cut out the transfer that we want to put onto the model. And this is just a straightforward cut, but you want to make sure you don't actually cut the decal itself. If there's enough room, just leave yourself a little leeway. There's no reason to cut it tighter than it has to be, but that's the transfer that we're going to use. So we can get rid of this now. Take a pair of tweezers for this, and I like to just grab it in around like the edge of it so it's not actually touching any of the decal itself, but it is holding it. Get your model ready, do a test for it real quick, just make sure everything lines up. Looks like this is going to fit perfectly. I'm going to apply it right here. So now it's as straightforward as just getting your brush super wet and just coat this front and back with the microset solution. Sometimes I'll put a little bit on the surface as well. Doesn't matter. You don't want to like go super crazy here, but also don't skimp out either because you want to be able to position it. Now, the longer you let this set, the easier it's going to be to take the decal off of this. Ideally, it's just going to slide right off. You could either try to take it and pick it up with the brush. Sometimes when you tap it, it'll just pick up. Sometimes you need to coax it a little bit, but you see it's already moving around on here. So just by gently sliding this, you can kind of get the decal to move off of it. You can hold the paper right here and slide the decal right onto the model, or if you are dexterous, you can just pick it up and it'll just stick right to your brush. I like doing that. Give your tweezers a little drop here, that'll come off. Pick your model up, put the decal where you want it, and then just apply. You don't have to be too precise here, but the decal is now on the model. You can use some push operations to go around the outside here and just reposition it exactly where you want it. If it is not moving, you can just take a little bit of extra microsol. Now you get a little water bubble on and it'll move around super easy. You see like just kind of bopping around here. So put it exactly where you want it, and you can take all the time you need. It's not going anywhere, it's not melting, there's no time rush here, but that looks about good. Reposition it, make sure that it's level and exactly where you want it, and then we just wait. If you want to dry a little faster, you can dry your brush off and then just soak up, kind of mop up this extra microset around here, being careful not to move the decal. That will, like I just did. It'll speed up drying if you're impatient. If I have a lot of models to do, I don't want to sit here and wait for them to dry. You don't necessarily have to let them dry completely. If you are in a rush, or if you're lazy like me, simply don't care, you can move on to the next step now, but it is best practice to wait until it is fully dried before moving on to the next step. So for the purposes of this, I will do that. this has dried enough now. It's looking pretty good. It's on there. I mean, it's definitely a decal. If you leave it as is, it's likely not going to go anywhere. It's definitely on there. It's set. You could leave it as is, just use the micro set, and that's fine. However, if I can get the light just right, you'll see, oh yeah, there we go. So this is still very much like clearly a decal. You see the contrast there. You can see where the decal starts and the paint stops. And it just kind of, if you catch it in the right light, especially in person here, not on camera, you can just very clearly tell that that's a decal, and that's where the microsole comes in. So the only thing this is going to do is melt this decal onto the surface, and it's going to give it that painted on look, like it says on the bottle, for that painted on look. So simply dip your brush in here and notice that this is the separate dedicated microsole brush, and apply it on here. You do not want to apply a ton, otherwise you run the risk of lifting the decal, which you do not want to do. So I even have a little bit too much on here. You can go just a little bit on your first coat and then just do another one, but the name of the game here is very gentle brush strokes. I'm barely touching it. I'm pretty much just using the brush as a means to get the microsole onto the decal. If you were lazy and didn't wait for this to dry completely, then you have a greater chance of this decal moving around. If that's the case, that's fine. Just reposition it, but keep in mind that as soon as you apply the microsole, your decal is going to start melting, and it will literally just start melting to the model and pulling apart and moving around until eventually it resembles nothing like the original decal that you have, and you'll lose the decal. So be careful at this stage. Melt it on. I'll do another one with a curved surface. This is really straightforward because there's no curvature or anything. When you get into the models that have like the shoulder pad of a Space Marine, this is a curved surface here, so applying a flat decal is a little bit more complicated. But when you get into melting it, it actually conforms very nicely if you do it the right way. So I'll do a follow-up on that, but you can see this is already starting to dry here. So once we have this initial coat on, we'll have to worry even less about it moving on us or ripping or tearing or getting pushed away melted, and we can be a lot more liberal with a second coat. So I'll just give this a minute to dry up, and then we'll add a little bit more. Alright, our first layer is on there. You're already seeing a little bit of an improvement here. Now our second coat, I take a little bit more and then just really kind of blast it on and blend it across the whole area. You can be a lot more liberal with this phase. The more you put on here, the more it's just going to melt it onto the model. So you can see I've really like coated the entire thing here, and then I'm just going to let this dry. And what this will do is make it look a lot more seamless onto the actual paint job. So let's give this a rest, and then we will take a look. So here we have the finished model. The decal is dry for the most part, and you can see it definitely is looking a lot like that more painted on look and like fully part of the model. So yeah, that is pretty much it. Just keep rinse and repeat.